Hey guys, here's a review from our discussion on the third and fourth seals and the rise of the Antichrist. So we started by talking about the four horsemen of the apocalypse and how the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, when Jesus was approached by the disciples and asked, tell us how all this is going to happen, what's going to be the sign of your return at the end of the world. Um, what Jesus told them matches exactly what we read in Revelation chapter 6 with the seals getting opened. For example, the first thing he said was, don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name claiming I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. Verse 4 through 5. This matches the first seal, where John saw a rider on a white horse carrying a bow, and a crown was placed on his head, and he rode out to win many battles and gained a victory. Sounds like a Messiah figure. Actually, a lot of people have thought that this was the Messiah, and this is Jesus on the first horse, kind of going out to win many victories. But when you match it with what Jesus said in Matthew 24 about false messiahs going out, and do not be deceived, I think this rider on a white horse is representative of a false messiah or false messiahs. Now, there's been a lot of false messiahs over the last couple hundred years. Currently, there is a false messiah that in 2020 came out in an interview saying that not only is he the real king of the crown in England, and he has documents and paperwork to back it up, but he's also claiming that he is the Messiah, that he is the second Messiah, the harbinger of the new age, and the rightful king of Israel. This guy's name is Joseph Gregory Hallett. He's out there right now holding to this claim of being the Messiah. So there you go. Be looking out for him. The next thing Jesus said in verse 6 and half of verse 7 is, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Well, the second seal, the rider on a red horse, he's given a mighty sword and the authority to take peace from the earth, and there was war and slaughter everywhere. Kind of sounds like a world war. Many people think we're at the brink of World War III right now with what's going on in the world. So, you got the false messiah out there and possible world war. Maybe we're here. Maybe we're at the opening of these seals. Continuing with what Jesus said in Matthew 24, after, verse 4 through 5, the first seal of the false messiah. Verse 6 through 7, the second seal of war everywhere, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Jesus just then says in the second half of verse 7 and verse 8, the third and fourth seal, which is there will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But this is all just the beginning of birth pains, he says, with more to come. The third seal, you get the rider on a black horse that's holding a pair of scales in his hands. And there's a riddle that goes along with this horseman, and that is a loaf of wheat bread or 3 loaves of barley will cost a day's pay. And don't waste the olive oil and the wine. We talked about this riddle. Sounds like a famine, just like Jesus said in Matthew 24, after the wars everywhere between nations and kingdoms, that there will be a famine. Well, here you got a loaf of wheat bread costing a day's pay. The only way that could be is if the supply is really low and the demand goes really high. So sounds like a famine, maybe even an economic collapse. We talked about how the dollar value has been declining over the last few years. And I talked to you guys about, this new currency that's been out. It's not that new. It's been out for about 15 years or so. The one on the right there is the Iraqi Dinar, the denarius. It's the latest currency that's out there. It's got all the whistles on counterfeit security. America helped produce it for the new Iraqi government when they were formed about 15 years ago. And there was such hype about the denarius that many people even went out and bought a bunch thinking that the value of it was going to rise. Now, today, the value of the denarii still hasn't risen. It's still pretty low. But I don't know. I mean, after World War, after famine, could it be that the economy collapses and a new economy is formed and a new currency is formed for a new worldwide economy, a currency known as the Iraqi Dinar. Possibly. It's interesting that in the ESV version, talking about the third seal, and in the King James Version as well, it comes right out in causal a denarius. A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. Do not harm the oil and the wine. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it will cost a denarius. Maybe that's the only money that could be used to buy wheat or barley or, oil and wine. So maybe that does become the new economy. I don't know, but we'll definitely keep an eye on the denarius as time goes on. Okay, then the fourth seal, you get the pale horse, and its rider is named Death, and Hades follows close behind. And they were given power over a fourth of the earth. So we looked up the population of the earth being about 8 billion right now in 2024. So a fourth of that would be 2 billion people that will be killed by the sword. Might be an outcome of that world war, or maybe just societal collapse, anarchy everywhere, killed by famine, starving to death because there's low food supply, shortage of food, and plague. Maybe there'll be another pandemic, worse than COVID, and by the wild beasts of the earth. So that's interesting. I don't know what that means. The animals are going to maybe turn against us as well. There is that weird zombie deer plague that's starting to spread in North America, affecting the deer population. That's kind of odd. So plague's even going to affect across the animals. It's going to make the animals more wild, and the animals are going to start attacking us. I don't know, but what we get out of this fourth seal is that, can you imagine 2 billion people dying? I mean, there's not even that many people living in America. So that would be more than everybody living in America dying. 2 billion people. That will definitely be a complete reset of the world we know. 2 billion people die. That will be an end to society as we know it, the world as we know it, and it will be basically a whole new start for mankind. So is that the purpose of the Four Horsemen? It's the purpose of the Four Horsemen to bring an end to the world as we know it, society as we know it, in order so that out of the ashes a new world order rises, a new government, a new economy, maybe with the Iraqi dinar or the Iraq central banking system, maybe. How about a new government ruling the world? Maybe there's going to be a new United Nations. Maybe the capital will be in ancient Babylon, like we saw in Revelation 17 about Babylon rising. Ancient Babylon being in Iraq, Baghdad. Well, it makes sense that the currency of the world will come from there. Maybe the government will be based there as well. What will be the symbol of this new world order? Would it be an obelisk representing creation and rebirth, resurrection, unity and harmony? I mean, definitely after having world war and famine and the death of 2 billion people, the survivors are definitely going to want unity and harmony. They're going to not want to fight anymore. They're going to want peace, and they're going to want unity. Otherwise, they're going to be thinking, man, we may not survive as a race. Mankind may not survive unless we unite and there's harmony. So you could definitely see this kind of stuff happening. I mean, who's going to rule this new world order? It's going to be a false messiah, like Joseph Gregory Hallett, harbinger of the new age, kind of bringing these new ideas out? Or is it going to be this figure of the Antichrist, which we started talking about this week, and we're probably going to talk about for the rest of the semester because he's a key figure when it comes to the end times prophecies. And who's going to be a member of this new world order? Would it be all the nations of the world after World War and after society collapse? Maybe all the nations will combine to form one world government and one new world order, setting the stage up to give it all to the Antichrist to then rule. So another interesting with the fourth seal is it's the only one where the rider is named. None of the other horsemen are named, but this one is named as Death is his name, and Hades follows close behind. So we kind of talked about that riddle. Hades, We know it's from ancient Greek mythology. It's the god of the dead. Also, the underworld is called Hades in Greek mythology after this guy. Egyptian mythology, the god of the dead is Anubis, also a god of the underworld. So I don't know, maybe these guys are the same guy, or maybe there's two of them down there. Not sure, and what they have to do with the fourth seal. But studying Anubis, we have studied before. What's interesting about him is that he's the one, according to Egyptian mythology, that is going to be responsible for raising Osiris. So just like we're waiting for our Messiah to return, Egyptian mythology, they're waiting for Osiris to return from the dead, with the help of Anubis and with the help of a new King Tut here on earth. So their hope is that there will be some new King Tut on earth that's going to somehow work together with Anubis in the underworld to bring back from the underworld Osiris and resurrect him. Osiris, whose symbol is the Ankh, which is that cross on the top there, kind of mocking the cross of Christ, and speaking of his resurrection. So, interesting. We'll have to be looking for this Osiris character as well. So we got into this Antichrist figure and pretty much talk about his rise, how he kind of appears on the scene. And to do that, we started back with the Old Testament with Daniel chapter 7, where Daniel had a dream of these four beasts coming out of the sea. A lion with wings, a bear with 3 ribs in his mouth, a leopard with 4 heads, and then a fourth terrifying beast that had 10 horns. In the interpretation of the dream, he was told that each one represented a king and a kingdom. During the time that he got this dream, King Nebuchadnezzar was king of Babylon, so it's believed he is the lion with the wings, which is interesting because ancient Babylon, the winged lion, is a symbol of ancient Babylon and even of Nebuchadnezzar himself. After Nebuchadnezzar came Persia, represented by the bear with 3 ribs, because the Persian Empire was Persia, Medes, and then Babylon. When they took over Babylon, the 3 combined formed the Persian Empire. Persian Empire was then conquered by the Greeks, represented by the leopard, by Alexander the Great, who conquered Persia and then died of pneumonia, and his kingdom was divided into 4 kingdoms, representative of the 4 heads of the leopard. And then the fourth beast, which is the one that Daniel was most intrigued on. He was told that these represented 4 kingdoms, but in the end, the holy people of the Most High will be given the kingdom and they will rule forever and ever. Now, what's interesting is this matched King Nebuchadnezzar's dream earlier in Daniel chapter 2, where, if you remember, he saw a huge statue with a head of gold representing Babylon, chest of silver representing Persia, waist of bronze representing Greece, legs of iron representing Rome, and then the feet of 10 toes, which is like a mix of iron and clay, representing how, when Rome fell, when the Roman Empire fell, it didn't just cease to exist. It just kind of fractured into the European nations, which were kind of strong as Rome, but not as strong. So there's that iron and clay mix. And that's where we are in that prophetic vision right now. We're the 10 toes. Because the next event was this huge rock, if you remember, coming and smashing that statue, representing the millennial kingdom of Christ, smashing all the kingdoms of the world, and then ruling the earth. So, that it's cool how it kind of matched Daniel's dream of these 4 beasts. Daniel was most intrigued with the 4th beast. He said it was different from the others and terrifying. Devouring and crushing its victims with iron teeth and bronze. There's a tie to the iron in the statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And he asked about the 10 horns that were on the 4th beast's head, and how he watched as 3 of the horns were taken out and this little horn then appeared in its place. That little horn is the first reference we get to that character known as the Antichrist. Okay, and Daniel saw that, this little horn, this Antichrist, seemed greater than the others. It had human eyes and a mouth that was boasting arrogantly, and he watched as the horn waged war against God's holy people and was defeating them, until the Ancient One, the Most High, comes to judge in favor of his people until the Messiah returns. Matching it with what Jesus said, Matthew 24. So in verse 4 through 8, matches with the first four seals and the four horsemen of the apocalypse, with the false Messiah, the wars between kingdoms, famines, and the birth pains. Then what comes next? Well, Jesus says after that, after the four horsemen, after World War, famine, death of 2 billion people, then as this new government rises, this new world order, you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You'll be hated all over the world just because you are my followers. And many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. I believe this verse 9 and 10 is coinciding with the rise and rule of the Antichrist, that little horn that Daniel saw in his dream that wages war against God's holy people. Let's talk about those horns a little more. So in Revelation 17, we were told that the 10 horns on that beast actually represent 10 individuals. It represents 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. So when this new world order in the future rises out of the ashes of the four horsemen, 10 kings will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. And they, all 10 of them, will agree to give him, the Antichrist, that little horn, their power and authority. So as this new world order rises, 10 will be selected to kind of rule over it. And they're all going to agree that when the Antichrist comes on the scene, they're going to just give their kingdoms over to him and he's going to rule the world. Here it is in Daniel chapter 7. Just like in Revelation, Daniel was told the 10 horns are 10 kings who will rule that empire. Then another king, the Antichrist, will arise, different from the other 10. And he will subdue 3 of them. So this is interesting. All 10 agree to give him the power, but then for some reason when he shows up, the Antichrist has to subdue 3 of them. Maybe 3 of them have a change of heart. I don't know. Maybe when they see him, they're like, oh, shoot, never mind. That was a bad idea. Doesn't stop them, though. It says the Antichrist subdues them and is put in their place and still takes over, that beast or that final kingdom. Verse 25, the Antichrist will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. That's us. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws. That could be reference to Israel and the Jews, their sacred festivals and laws. And they will be placed under his control for a time, times, and half a time. So we talked about that word. What does that mean? Time, times, and half a time. Well, it's believed that means 3.5 years. A time, 1 year. Times with an S, 2 more years. So 1 plus 2 is 3 years. And half a time, 3.5 years. And this is tied to another prophecy which believes in Daniel chapter 7. That talks about how the Antichrist, this little horn, is given 7 years to reign. He's given 7-year period where he's going to be in charge. And at the halfway point, half of 7 being 3.5, something happens, which we'll talk about in the next class. So just for now, just keep in mind that 3.5 year, it's a very important marker in the reign of the Antichrist. Okay, well, what's cool and interesting was how Daniel's dream of these 4 beasts kind of matches John's vision in Revelation 13. So in Revelation 13, John also sees a similar vision, but instead of seeing 4 beasts coming out of the seas, he only sees 1 beast coming out of the sea. But what's interesting, though, is the 1 beast that John sees in Revelation 13 has features of the 4 beasts that Daniel saw in his dream. For example, the beast that John describes in Revelation 13 has the body of a leopard, kind of like the leopard in Daniel's dream, representing Greece, or Europe. So is the body of this new world order going to be a European body that kind of governs? The beast had the feet of a bear that's moving the beast along, the bear being, in Daniel's vision, Persia or Iran today, or Islam? Is it going to be Islam that moves this governing European Greek body as the New World Order? Maybe. It's got the mouth of a lion, the mouth of Babylon. Is that Iraq? Is that where the Antichrist will rule from? Is that where he's going to speak arrogantly and boastfully from Iraq? And the 10 horns in Daniel's dream is also on John's mutant beast coming out of the sea. He's got 10 horns on his head, kind of leading this beast. So, kind of cool how you see these 4 beasts kind of, coming together into this hybrid one beast in John's vision in Revelation 13. Here's the actual 4 verses. I'll go ahead and read it to you. From Revelation 13, John sees this beast rising up out of the sea. It had 7 heads and 10 horns with 10 crowns on its horns. So there's the 10 kings right there. And written on each head were names that blaspheme God. So that's something to note there. These 10 kings are not going to be godly men. Actually, it says each of them will blaspheme God. So important to keep that in mind. Verse 2, this beast looked like a leopard, like the Greek kingdom in Daniel's vision, Greek European kingdom. But it had the feet of a bear, feet of Persia, Iran, Islam, moving it along, and the mouth of a lion, speaking boastfully from Babylon, modern-day Iraq. And the dragon gave the beast his own power. So this is interesting. In Revelation 12, the chapter prior, we are told that the dragon is Satan. It's Lucifer. And so here we see that it is Satan himself that gives this new beast, this new world order, its power, its throne, and its great authority. Okay, verse 3. And I saw that one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. So fatal means death. So here we get some kind of resurrection event where there's a fatal wound and it is healed. And it says the whole world marveled at this miracle and gave allegiance to the beast. So this is interesting. So this resurrection event that happens is what's going to cause people all over the world, the survivors, right? The survivors from the remaining 4 billion that didn't die through the 4 horsemen that survived in the ashes. As this new world order rises to power and these 10 kings are put in power, they're going to see this miraculous resurrection type event that's just going to blow everybody away and will cause them to give allegiance to this beast. And then here's the disturbing part. It says they will worship the dragon for giving the beast his power. So there's going to be no surprise, no secret here that Lucifer is behind this. They will know it's him, and they're even going to worship him for giving this beast this power. And they will say, who's as great as the beast? Who is able to fight against it? So they will just submit to this new world order, which will be ruled by the Antichrist, knowing it's Lucifer that established it, and they will worship Lucifer for it. So where does that leave us Christians? If we survive the 4 horsemen, and we're not part of the 2 billion that died, probably will be part of, most of us will be part of it, but some of us will survive, and we're around when this beast arises, this new world order led by the Antichrist, worshiping Lucifer. Where does that leave us? Well, it makes sense why Jesus said, then you will be persecuted, hunted down, and killed, just because you're a follower of me. I mean, if the world is worshiping Lucifer at that point, and his kingdom, and his Antichrist, we are the enemy, and we will be hunted down and killed. As far as this resurrection event that kind of marvels everybody, we get a hint of it in Revelation 17, when we're told that the beast you saw was once alive but isn't now. John is told this, which is interesting because, was once alive but isn't now. This was 2,000 years ago almost where John got this vision. So this resurrection event, is it somebody that it's been dead for almost, more than 2,000 years, and they somehow bring him back. I mean, yeah, that would definitely marvel people, right? How would they do that? Yeah, clone him, call up his soul from the bottomless pit, because it says, yeah, he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. So he's coming from below. Notice that the Antichrist comes from below. So how is this going to happen? And it will marvel everybody that sees it happening that's around during that time. So we'll be looking for that. All right, so that covers the rise of the Antichrist. For our next lesson, we'll talk about his reign, about his rule, and the fifth and sixth seal. So we'll continue in Revelation 6, finish it, and talk about the fifth and sixth seal. You'll see how in the fifth seal that we become martyrs for our faith and are killed for our faith. We'll continue in Revelation 13, which talks about the reign of the Antichrist, the reign of this beast. And we'll continue in Daniel, in chapters 8 and 9, where he gets some more visions to kind of piggyback off of that dream that he had in chapter 7. And of course, we'll match everything up to Matthew 24 and what Jesus told us how these things would take place. It's really cool how all these different pieces of scripture kind of go together and make one narrative, telling us play by play how this is going to play out. So keep reading, keep praying, and until then, God bless.